The crystal hull of the Zephyrian research vessel Gentle Current cracked like breaking glass in the cold vacuum of space. Captain Veltar pressed his thin blue fingers against the emergency controls as another section of the ship's beautiful, translucent walls split open. Air rushed out into the darkness between the stars. His crew of 12 scientists floated around the bridge in their emergency suits. Their large black eyes showed fear through their helmet visors. Veltar had been a ship captain for 30 cycles. He had explored peaceful worlds and studied strange phenomena across the galaxy. His people were known for their gentle nature and love of knowledge. They had never carried weapons. They had never needed to. The Zephyrians believed that all intelligent life could be reasoned with. They thought the universe was a place where problems could be solved through understanding and careful study. Today, that belief was being tested in the worst possible way. 3 hours ago, they had been studying gravitational waves near the edge of the Kepler void. It was supposed to be empty space. Nothing lived there. Nothing should have been there. But their sensors had picked up massive energy readings coming from the dark region between star systems. Veltar had ordered the ship closer to investigate. Science was their mission. Discovery was their purpose. What they found made every crew member wish they had stayed home, hidden in the shadow of a dead moon. Was the largest military fleet any of them had ever seen. 237 ships arranged in perfect attack formation. Each vessel was black as the void around it. Sharp edges and brutal angles made them look like weapons themselves. Acid burns scarred their hulls from previous battles. These were not exploration ships or peaceful traders. These were Korthik war vessels. The name Korthik struck terror into every civilized species in the galaxy. They were tall, insect-like beings covered in thick chitinous armor. Their faces had 4 eyes arranged around a mouth full of razor teeth. Acid glands in their throats could melt through most metals. They had conquered 47 worlds in the past 50 years. Every planet they touched was left as a burned wasteland. The Korthak did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply killed everything that lived and took what they wanted from the empty worlds left behind. Now they were massing for something big. The formation told Veltar everything he needed to know. This was not a raiding party. This was a full invasion fleet preparing to attack the Inner Rim colonies. Millions of peaceful beings lived on those worlds. Families raised their children. There, artists created beauty there. Scientists like his own crew studied the wonders of the universe there. All of those lives were about to end in fire, and acid. The Gentle Current had been spotted while they observed the fleet. 3 Korthik patrol ships had opened fire immediately. The research vessel's shields had held for only minutes before failing. The hull had begun cracking under the assault. Only quick thinking by his engineer Colin had gotten them away before. The ship was destroyed completely, but they were dying slowly instead of quickly. Life support was failing. The engines were damaged beyond repair. They were trapped in empty space with no way to escape and no way to fight back. Worse yet, they were the only ones who knew about the invasion fleet. If they died here, the Inner Rim colonies would never receive warning. Veltar floated to the communications station where his signals officer Nixara worked frantically at the controls. Sparks flew from damaged circuits. The main transmitter had been destroyed in the attack. Only the emergency beacon still functioned and its range was limited. "Can you reach anyone?" he asked. Nixara's voice came through the suit radio with static crackling around her words. "I have partial power to the emergency transmitter. Range is maybe 12 light years. I can send a basic distress signal, but I do not know if anyone will receive it." "Send everything. Location of the fleet, number of ships, direction they are heading. Someone must warn the colonies." "Captain, the nearest galactic cooperative patrol is 20 light years away. Even if they receive our signal, they cannot reach U.S. in time to help." Veltar looked around at his crew. Scientists and explorers who had never seen violence before today. They had dedicated their lives to learning and discovery. Now they faced death in the cold space between stars. But their deaths would mean nothing if the Korthik fleet reached the colonies unopposed. Send the signal anyway. Include everything. We observed. Someone must know what is coming. Nixara's fingers moved over the controls. The emergency beacon began transmitting their desperate message across space. The signal was weak, but it carried everything they had learned about the Korthic fleet: ship counts, weapon signatures, projected attack routes. It was information that could save millions of lives if it reached the right people. The signal bounced from relay station to relay station across the local arm of the galaxy. Most species that received it began immediate debate in their councils. The peaceful Altarians discussed diplomatic solutions that would never work with the Korthic. The logical Centaurans ran probability calculations that showed the colonies had little chance of survival. The wise Etherians meditated on the cosmic significance of such widespread death, but there was one signal that bounced back from a system, marked in red on every galactic chart, a world that most civilized species refused to visit. A planet whose inhabitants were classified as a Class 12 Deathworld species. The signal reached Earth and the beings who lived there. Humans. Most of the galaxy knew very little about humans except that they came from a world so dangerous that it was marked as off limits to civilian traffic. Story spoke of a planet where everything was designed to kill, gravity that could crush most species. Whether that changed from burning heat to killing cold, predators at the top of every food chain, plants that were poisonous to touch, an atmosphere that was toxic to most forms of life. Somehow humans had not just survived on this nightmare world. They had thrived. They had built a civilization and reached for the stars. When they finally joined the galactic community, they had done so with such overwhelming military power that other species had simply stepped aside and let them claim their territory. The red zones around human space were not meant to keep humans in, they were meant to keep everyone else out. Now the desperate signal from the dying Zephyrian ship had reached them. While other species debated and calculated and meditated, the humans were already responding. Deep in their territory, something was moving. Something was coming. Veltar did not know any of this as he watched his ship continue to fall apart around him. The hull cracks were spreading. More air was escaping. His crew was running out of time. He had done everything he could. The warning had been sent. Now all they could do was wait to die and hope that someone somewhere would act on the information they had provided. The communications console crackled with static. Then a voice came through. It was speaking in the common galactic trade language, but with an accent that none of them recognized. The voice was calm and steady. It carried confidence that seemed impossible given the situation. Zephyrian vessel, gentle current, this is Admiral Jake Morrison of Terra Command. We have received your distress signal and analyzed the threat data you provided. Be advised that assistance is already en route to your position. Hold your current location and prepare for contact. Veltar stared at the radio in amazement. Someone had not only received their signal but was already sending help. He had never heard of Terra Command, but they sounded like they meant business. Perhaps there was hope after all. The transmission continued. Be aware that our response will not be what you expect. We are not sending rescue ships. We are sending a solution to your Korthic problem. Terra Command out. The signal went dead, leaving the bridge in confused silence. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Terra Command headquarters, buried deep beneath the Colorado mountains. The massive holographic display in front of him showed the alien distress signal data streaming in real time. Red dots marked the positions of 237 Korthic warships arranged in invasion formation. Blue indicators showed the projected path toward the inner rim colonies where millions of innocent beings lived their peaceful lives. Morrison was 52 years old with gray hair and scars from 3 different wars. He had commanded human forces in the Rigel sector conflict and the Proxima border disputes. He had seen what happened when aggressive species decided to prey on the weak. The sight never got easier to witness, but it always got easier to know what needed to be done about it. Status report, he called to his staff. Commander Lisa Hayes stepped forward with a datapad in her hands. She was 38 years old with dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Her uniform bore the ribbons of a dozen combat missions. She had been Morrison's tactical advisor for 5 years and had never once recommended retreat when civilians were threatened. Sir, the alien vessel was correct about the threat level. Intelligence confirms this is the largest Korthic fleet movement in recorded history. Our analysis indicates they are preparing for a coordinated assault on at least 12 colony worlds. Estimated civilian casualties would be in the tens of millions, Morrison nodded grimly. The numbers were always the same with the Korthak. They did not take prisoners or leave survivors. They simply exterminated everything that lived and stripped the planets bare of resources. Time to target. The fleet will reach the first colony world in 36 hours if they maintain current speed. Our nearest patrol vessels are 48 hours away. We cannot intercept them with conventional forces. Morrison turned to the display and studied the tactical situation. Most military commanders would see an impossible scenario. 237 enemy ships versus whatever they could scramble in time. The math did not look good using traditional thinking, but humans had never been traditional thinkers. Prep the Iron Resolve for immediate launch. Full combat loadout? Hayes raised an eyebrow. Sir, the Iron Resolve is still in experimental status. We have only completed basic trials on the new weapon systems. The Korthak are about to murder millions of civilians, Commander. I would say that qualifies as an adequate field test. Yes, sir? Who do you want in command? Morrison looked at her directly. You, take whoever you need from the Special Operations roster. This is a volunteer. Mission only. Make sure everyone understands what they are signing up for. Hayes straightened to attention. Understood, sir. When do we launch? 6 hours. The aliens said they were dying slowly, so we have a little time to prepare. Use it wisely. The Iron Resolve sat in the highest security shipyard on Luna Base. It was humanity's most advanced warship and possibly the most dangerous vessel ever built by any species. The ship was 300 meters long with armor plating forged from materials that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Human scientists had created new metals by smashing atoms together in ways that nature never intended. The weapon systems were equally revolutionary. Plasma cannons that could punch through any known shielding. Gravitational torpedoes that created localized space-time distortions. Point defense systems that fired solid projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Every system was designed with one purpose: to eliminate threats to human space and the innocent beings humanity had chosen to protect. Captain Lisa Hayes arrived at the ship 6 hours later with her hand-picked crew. Commander Rick Sullivan would serve as her first officer. He was a veteran of the asteroid belt campaigns with experience in deep space combat operations. His job was to keep the ship running while Hayes focused on the tactical situation. The Marine contingent was led by Sergeant Major Tony Rodriguez. He had fought in ground actions on 12 different worlds and had never lost a man under his command. His Marines were equipped with powered armor and weapons that could function in any environment. They were trained to board hostile vessels and secure them for human forces. Lieutenant Kate Williams commanded the fighter squadron. Her pilots flew the new Falcon-class interceptors that were faster and more maneuverable than anything else in space. They carried missiles designed to penetrate heavy armor and disrupt enemy formation flying. Chief Engineer Don Cooper ran the engine room with a team of specialists who understood every system on the ship. The Iron Resolve used a quantum fusion drive that could push the vessel to speeds that would tear apart conventional ships. Cooper's job was to keep that power flowing no matter what kind of damage they took. Communications Officer Amy Parker handled all contact with external forces. She spoke 12 different languages and understood the communication protocols of most known species. Her equipment could break through electronic jamming and maintain contact across vast distances. As the crew made final preparations, Hayes walked through the ship checking on each department. The Iron Resolve was not designed for exploration or research. Every space was optimized for combat efficiency. Corridors were wide enough for Marines in full armor to move quickly. Bulkheads were reinforced to contain battle damage. Emergency. Systems could keep the ship fighting even after massive structural failure, Hayes found Rodriguez in the armory where his Marines were checking their equipment. The sergeant major looked up as she entered. "Captain, the boys are ready to go. We have enough firepower aboard to level a small city." "Let us hope it does not come to that, Sergeant Major. Our mission is to eliminate the Korthic fleet before it reaches the colonies. If we do our job right, there will not be any boarding actions." Rodriguez grinned, showing teeth that had been broken in fights on 3 different worlds. "Ma'am, with respect, I have read the intelligence reports on Korthic ship design. Those bugs build their vessels like fortresses. You are going to need Marines to crack them open." Hayes knew he was probably right. The Korthak built their ships to survive in combat. Heavy armor and redundant systems made them difficult to destroy with long-range weapons alone. At some point, her crew would have to get close and personal with the enemy. "Just make sure your people understand the rules of engagement. We are not there to take prisoners or capture territory. Our job is to eliminate the threat completely. Understood, Captain. No survivors." Hayes moved on to the bridge where her officers were running final system checks. The main display showed their planned route to the intercept point. They would jump directly into the combat zone and engage the enemy fleet immediately. There would be no time for reconnaissance or careful planning. Amy Parker looked up from her communications console. "Captain, I have been monitoring alien communications traffic. Word about the Korthek fleet is spreading throughout the Inner Rim. Several species are evacuating their colonies." "Any military response?" "Negative. The Altarians are calling for peace talks. The Centaurans are calculating odds of survival. Nobody is sending warships." Hayes was not surprised. Most civilized species preferred to solve problems through negotiation and compromise. They found it difficult to understand that some threats could only be stopped through the application of overwhelming force. Don Cooper's voice came over the intercom from engineering. "Captain, all systems are green. We are ready for departure." Hayes settled into the command chair and activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We have received a distress call from innocent beings who are about to be attacked by the Korthik fleet. Our mission is to intercept and destroy that fleet before it can reach the colonies. I will not lie to you about our chances. We are one ship against more than 200 enemy vessels. But we are human, and they are not. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We stand between the darkness and the light. Today we show the galaxy what it means to threaten the innocent when humans are watching." She closed the channel and turned to Sullivan. "Take us out, Commander." The Iron Resolve lifted away from Luna Base and turned toward open space. The quantum fusion drive came online with a deep thrumming that could be felt throughout the ship. Space twisted around them as they accelerated beyond the speed of light toward a distant battlefield where the fate of millions would be decided. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation around an ordinary yellow star. But the planet that looked so peaceful from space had just sent forth its deadliest creation to remind the galaxy why humanity's territory was marked in red on every star chart. The Iron Resolve dropped out of hyperspace like a predator emerging from tall grass. Captain Lisa Hayes felt the familiar sensation of reality snapping back into focus as the quantum drive shut down. The main display immediately lit up with tactical information as the ship's sensors swept the local area. "Contact," called Lieutenant Sam Turner from the navigation station. "I have the Zephyrian vessel on sensors. Distance 40,000 kilometers. Hull integrity is failing and life support is critical." Hayes studied the readings with professional concern. The alien research ship was barely holding together. Atmosphere was venting from multiple hull breaches. Their power levels were dropping steadily. The crew aboard that vessel had maybe 6 hours left before complete system failure. "Any sign of the Korthik fleet?" she asked. Turner's fingers moved over his controls as passive sensors reached out into the darkness. "Negative, Captain. But I am picking up massive energy signatures approximately 2 light hours away. Formation suggests a large military fleet in holding pattern." Hayes nodded. The enemy was exactly where the aliens had reported them to be. 237 warships waiting for the optimal moment to begin their attack on the colonies. She had arrived with just enough time to position her ship for maximum effectiveness. Commander Sullivan, prepare a boarding party. I want those alien survivors extracted before we engage the enemy fleet. Rick Sullivan turned from his station. Captain, that will take time we might not have. If the Korthek detect our presence, they could advance their timeline. Those beings risked their lives to warn the galaxy about this threat. We do not leave people behind who put themselves in danger to protect others. Sullivan nodded, understanding her reasoning. It was a fundamental principle of human military doctrine. Those who fought for the innocent deserved protection themselves. I will have Rodriguez prep his Marines for extraction operations. Hayes activated the ship-wide communication system. This is the captain. We have arrived at the target area. The enemy fleet is present in numbers consistent with intelligence reports. We will begin operations by extracting survivors from the alien vessel that provided us with this information. All departments prepare for combat operations. Lieutenant. Commander Sam Turner led the boarding party across the void between ships. He wore full environmental armor designed for hostile boarding actions. His team consisted of 6 Marines equipped with cutting tools and emergency medical supplies. Their mission was simple but dangerous. Get aboard the dying alien ship and bring back any survivors. The Zephyrian vessel Gentle Current was a work of art, even in its damaged state. The hull was made from some kind of living crystal that grew in beautiful organic patterns. But the attack damage was severe. Acid burns from Korthek weapons had eaten through multiple sections. The ship looked like a glass sculpture that had been shattered by hammer blows. Turner's team cut through the outer airlock with plasma torches. The interior of the ship was filled with a thin atmosphere that barely registered on their instruments. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows through the crystalline corridors. The boarding party moved quickly toward the bridge area. Where their sensors indicated life signs, they found 12 aliens huddled in environmental suits around emergency power sources. The beings were tall and thin, with blue skin and large black eyes. They moved with grace that seemed impossible in the low gravity. When they saw the humans approaching, several of them backed away in obvious fear. Turner activated his suit's external speakers and spoke in the common trade language. I am Lieutenant Commander Sam Turner of the human vessel Iron Resolve. We received your distress signal and are here to provide assistance. One of the aliens stepped forward. His suit bore markings that suggested command authority. When he spoke, his voice carried exhaustion and resignation. I am Captain Veltar of the research vessel Gentle Current. We are grateful for your response, but I fear you have arrived too late. Our ship is beyond repair, and the Korthek fleet will soon begin their attack. Turner looked around at the damage and had to agree with the aliens' assessment. This ship was not going anywhere under its own power. Captain, we can transfer your crew to our vessel, but you need to understand something. We are not here on a rescue mission. Veltar's large eyes showed confusion. I do not understand. You said you received our distress signal. We did. And we are going to deal with the threat you reported. But we are not evacuating the area. We are eliminating the Korthek fleet. The alien captain stared at Turner as if he had spoken in an unknown language. Eliminate the fleet. But there are more than 200 ships. How many vessels did your people send? Turner's voice remained completely calm. 1. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of failing life support systems. Finally, Veltar spoke again. 1 ship against the entire Korthek invasion fleet. That is not rescue. That is suicide. Captain, with respect, you do not know humans very well. We do not commit suicide. We solve problems. Sergeant Major Tony Rodriguez and his Marines began helping the alien crew toward the boarding tubes that connected the 2 ships. The Zephyrians moved carefully in their damaged suits. Several were injured from the initial attack and needed assistance walking. As they made their way through the crystal corridors, one of the younger aliens spoke to Turner. Human, why did your people respond to our signal? We are strangers to you. Our species have never even met before today. Turner paused to help the being over a section of collapsed decking. Because you asked for help. And because innocent people are about to die if we do nothing about it? But the risk to your own ship and crew is enormous. The logical choice would be to warn the colonies and evacuate as many beings as possible. Turner's helmet turned toward the alien. Evacuation means accepting that the Korthik will destroy those worlds. Warning people that they are about to die is not the same as preventing their deaths. We prefer prevention. The boarding operation was completed in 30 minutes. All 12 Zephyrian survivors were transferred to the Iron Resolve and taken to the medical bay where Dr. Helen Gray began treating their injuries. The aliens were amazed by the human ship's interior. Everything was built for efficiency and durability. The corridors were wide enough for armed troops to move quickly. The walls were covered with damage control equipment and emergency supplies. Captain Hayes met with Veltar in the medical bay while Dr. Gray worked on his crew. The alien captain looked tiny next to the human commander. Hayes stood nearly 2 meters tall with the build of someone who had spent years in combat zones. Her uniform carried ribbons from a dozen different conflicts. Captain Veltar, I need you to provide everything you observed about the Korthik fleet, ship classes, weapon, signatures, formation patterns. Anything that might help us engage them effectively. Veltar's large eyes studied Hayes carefully. Captain Hayes, I must ask you to reconsider this course of action. The Korthik are not like other species. They do not negotiate or show mercy. They will not retreat simply because you resist them. They will fight until every ship is destroyed. Hayes smiled, and Veltar found the expression disturbing. It showed too many teeth and held no warmth at all. Good, that will make this much simpler. You do not understand. The Korthik have conquered 47 worlds. Their warriors are bred for combat. Their ships are designed to survive the worst battles. No single vessel has ever successfully engaged a Korthik fleet. Captain, that is because no human ship has ever tried. We approach warfare differently than most species. Veltar looked around the medical bay at the human crew members working efficiently around him. They all carried weapons even while performing routine duties. Their movements suggested constant readiness for violence. Their eyes held a coldness that he had never seen in any civilized being. How do humans approach warfare? He asked quietly. Hayes leaned closer, and when she spoke her voice carried absolute certainty. We approach it with the intent to win completely. Not to achieve political goals or gain territory or negotiate favorable terms. We fight to eliminate threats permanently so they can never threaten innocent people again. Communications Officer Amy Parker's voice came over the intercom. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the Korthik fleet. It appears they have detected our presence. Hayes straightened and activated her communicator. Patch it through to the bridge. I will be right there, she turned back to Veltar. Captain, I suggest you and your crew remain in the medical bay until this is over. What you are about to witness is not going to be pleasant. Veltar watched her leave with growing dread. The human captain spoke about the coming battle as if the outcome was already decided. But 200 Korthik warships did not simply disappear because one enemy vessel wanted them to. The alien captain had seen the aftermath of Korthik attacks. Entire worlds burned to ash. Billions of beings dead. Civilizations reduced to radioactive wastelands. Now he was trapped aboard a human ship that was apparently going to attack that same unstoppable force with suicidal confidence. Veltar began to wonder if accepting human help had been the biggest mistake of his life. The bridge of the Iron Resolve hummed with deadly efficiency as Captain Hayes took her position in the command chair. The main display showed the Korthik fleet in perfect tactical formation 2 light hours away. 237 ships, arranged in hunting packs, designed to overwhelm any opposition through sheer numbers and firepower. Communications. Officer Amy Parker looked up from her station. Captain, the Korthik transmission is coming through on standard military frequencies, audio only. Put it through, Hayes ordered, The bridge speakers crackled with an alien voice that sounded like grinding metal mixed with hissing steam. The universal translator converted the hostile sounds into recognizable words but could not remove the underlying menace. Unknown vessel, this is Warmaster Grixt H of the Korthik 3rd Battle Fleet. You have entered a restricted military zone. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. Hayes activated the response channel. Her voice carried across space with calm authority that seemed impossible given the tactical situation. Warmaster Grixt H, this is Captain Lisa Hayes of the Terran vessel Iron Resolve. You are trespassing in civilized space with intent to commit genocide against innocent populations. You have one opportunity to withdraw your fleet immediately. The alien laughter that came back through the speakers sounded like breaking glass. Terran, I am not familiar with this species. You speak boldly for beings I have never conquered. Perhaps that oversight will be corrected today. Warmaster, you are about to become very familiar with humans. We are the species that other civilized beings call when they need someone eliminated permanently. Consider this your final warning. One small ship against my entire fleet. Your courage is admirable, but your intelligence is questionable. I will give you a chance to surrender. Submit to boarding, and I will grant you quick deaths instead of the slow agony reserved for those who resist. Hayes looked around the bridge at her crew. Every officer was focused on their duties with professional concentration. They had heard the enemy's threats and remained completely unmoved. This was what they had trained for their entire careers. Warmaster, we do not surrender to beings who target civilians. We eliminate them. The channel went dead, leaving the bridge in focused silence. Hayes turned to her tactical officer. Commander Sullivan, what is our weapon status? Rick Sullivan checked his displays before responding. All plasma cannon arrays are charged and ready. Gravitational torpedoes are loaded in tubes 1 through 8. Point defense systems are online. Fighter Squadron is ready for launch. Very good. Lieutenant Williams, take your pilots out there and give me eyes on the enemy formation. I want to know how they react to contact. Kate Williams nodded and headed for the fighter bay. Her 12 Falcon-class interceptors launched within minutes and began their approach toward the Korthik fleet. The small craft were fast and heavily armed, but their primary mission was reconnaissance and harassment. Chief Engineer Dan Cooper's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. Captain Quantum Fusion Drive is running at optimal parameters. We can maintain maximum combat power for approximately 4 hours before requiring cooldown. Understood, Chief. That should be more than enough time. Hayes studied the tactical display as her fighters approached the enemy fleet. The Korthik ships were massive compared to human vessels. Each one was over 500 meters long with thick armor plating and multiple weapon systems. They were built like flying fortresses, designed to absorb tremendous damage while delivering devastating firepower. Most military commanders would see impossible odds. 200 ships against one represented overwhelming numerical superiority. Traditional tactics called for retreat, or desperate calls for reinforcement, but humans did not think traditionally about warfare. They approached combat with principles learned from surviving on a world that tried to kill them every single day. Overwhelming force applied with precision timing at the enemy's weakest point. No mercy for predators who threatened the innocent. Complete elimination of threats rather than temporary victory. Contact, called Sam Turner from navigation. Enemy fleet is breaking formation. They are moving to intercept us. Hayes watched the tactical display as Korthik ships began spreading out in a standard envelopment pattern. They intended to surround the Iron Resolve and destroy it through concentrated fire from all directions. It was a proven tactic that had worked against countless other species. All fighters return to base immediately, Hayes ordered. I want them back aboard before we engage. Williams acknowledged and began bringing her squadron home. The fighters docked just as the first Korthik ships came into weapons range. The enemy opened fire with plasma bolts and kinetic projectiles, designed to overwhelm the human vessel's defenses. Hayes felt the ship shake as the first impacts hit their shields. The Iron Resolve's defensive systems absorbed the initial barrage, but she could see the power levels dropping on her status displays. The Korthak had firepower advantage and they were using it aggressively. "Return fire," she ordered calmly. The Iron Resolve's plasma cannons spoke with voices of controlled fury. Beams of superheated matter reached across space at near light speed and struck the lead Korthak vessels. The alien ships staggered under impacts that would have vaporized most civilized vessels. Their heavy armor absorbed tremendous punishment, but the human weapons kept firing with mechanical precision. "Direct hits on targets 1 through 6, reported Sullivan. "Enemy shields are failing. 2 ships showing critical damage." Hayes nodded as she watched the first Korthak vessels begin to break apart under the sustained bombardment. The enemy had expected their armor to protect them from anything one ship could deliver. They had not expected human weapons designed by beings who understood that overkill was preferable to giving enemies a second chance. "Launch gravitational torpedoes," Hayes commanded. "Target the command vessels in the center of their formation." 8. Torpedoes streaked away from the Iron Resolve toward the heart of the Korthak fleet. Each weapon carried a micro-singularity that would create a localized space-time distortion upon detonation. The technology was based on human understanding of extreme physics learned from living near a star that regularly produced solar flares. Capable of sterilizing planets, the torpedoes struck their targets and reality twisted in ways that violated everything most species understood about how the universe worked. Gravitational fields collapsed in on themselves, creating temporary black holes that consumed everything within a 50-kilometer radius. 6 Korthak command ships simply ceased to exist along with everything around them. War Master Grixith watched from his flagship as his carefully planned formation dissolved into chaos. Ships that had seemed invulnerable were being destroyed by weapons he had never encountered. The human vessel moved through his fleet like a predator among prey. Every shot found its target. Every torpedo eliminated multiple ships. His numerical advantage was disappearing faster than he could comprehend. "All ships converge on the human vessel," he ordered through the fleet communication system. "Concentrate all firepower. Destroy them now." The remaining Korthak ships abandoned their formation and rushed toward the Iron Resolve from all directions. They fired everything they had in a desperate attempt to overwhelm the human defenses through sheer volume of fire. Space around the human ship became filled with plasma bolts and explosive projectiles. Hayes felt her ship shake as dozens of impacts struck the hull simultaneously. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as armor plating was burned away and internal systems took damage. But the Iron Resolve had been built by beings who understood that survival required the ability to function while everything around them was trying to kill them. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Damage Control. "Emergency teams responding." "Keep firing," Hayes ordered without taking her eyes off the tactical display. "Target their engines. I want them dead in space." The Iron Resolve's weapons continued their methodical destruction of the Korthak fleet, even as enemy fire rained down on the human ship. Plasma cannons burned through alien armor like it was paper. Point defense systems intercepted incoming missiles with bullets fired at tremendous velocity. The human ship fought like something that had been designed specifically to kill Korthak vessels. Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom from the Marine Bay. "Captain, we have boarding pods incoming. Korthak warriors are attempting to breach our hull. Repel boarders, Sergeant Major. Show them what happens when someone tries to board a human warship." The sound of gunfire echoed through the ship's corridors as human marines engaged Korthak warriors in close combat. The aliens were larger and stronger than humans, but they had never fought beings who treated violence as a natural part of existence. Rodriguez's troops used tactics learned from centuries of warfare on a world where everything was an enemy. The boarding action lasted less than 10 minutes. When it was over, every Korthak warrior was dead, and the human marines were already sealing the hull breaches they had created during entry. Hayes continued her assault on the enemy fleet with methodical precision. She did not target ships randomly or waste ammunition on damaged vessels that were already out of the fight. Every shot was calculated to cause maximum damage to the enemy's ability to continue fighting. She was not trying to defeat the Korthic fleet. The silence in the medical bay of the Iron Resolve was broken only by the soft hum of life support systems and the quiet breathing of 12 Zephyrian survivors. Captain Veltar floated near one of the observation windows, staring out at what remained of the Korthic invasion fleet. Where 237 warships had threatened the galaxy only hours before now, there was nothing but expanding clouds of metallic debris catching the light of distant stars. Dr. Helen Gray moved between the alien patients, checking their injuries with gentle efficiency. She was a xenobiologist by training, but had learned field medicine during her years serving aboard human military vessels. Her hands were steady as she treated wounds that would have been fatal without immediate intervention. "The burns on your arm should heal completely within a few days," she told the young Zephyrian engineer Colin. "Human medical techniques work surprisingly well on most carbon-based life forms." Colin's large black eyes studied the human doctor with curiosity rather than fear. "Dr. Gray, may I ask you something about your species?" "Of course. What would you like to know?" "How did humans become so effective at warfare?" "Your ship destroyed an entire fleet that should have been impossible to defeat. Yet your people also show great care for injured strangers. I do not understand how both can exist in the same beings." Gray paused in her work and considered the question carefully. It was something that many species found confusing about humanity. They could not comprehend how the same people who showed such devastating violence in combat could be so gentle when treating the wounded. "Humans evolved on a world where everything was designed to kill us," she explained. "Predators hunted us, plants poisoned us. The weather tried to freeze or burn us. Diseases attacked our bodies. Even the ground beneath our feet could split open and swallow entire cities. We learned to be violent because violence was necessary for survival." "But why do you care about beings from other worlds?" "We are not your species. Our survival has no benefit for humanity." Gray smiled and returned to treating his injuries. "Because we also learned that cooperation and compassion make us stronger. The humans who helped each other survived better than those who fought alone. We extend that same cooperation to other species who share our values." Across the medical bay, Captain Veltar continued staring out at the debris field. His mind struggled to process what he had witnessed. The largest military force in known galactic history had been eliminated by a single human vessel in less than 3 hours. The mathematics alone seemed impossible. Sergeant Major Tony Rodriguez entered the medical bay carrying a container of human food supplies. His armor still bore scorch marks from the boarding action against Korthic warriors. Despite having just participated in lethal combat, his manner with the alien survivors was completely gentle. "Captain Hayes thought you folks might be hungry," he said to Veltar. "This stuff is designed for long space missions, so it should be safe for most species." Veltar accepted the container with trembling hands. "Sergeant Major, may I ask what happened to the Korthic warriors who boarded your ship?" Rodriguez's expression did not change. "They were eliminated, Captain, all of them." "How many human casualties did you suffer during the boarding action?" "None. We had a few minor injuries, but nothing serious." Veltar stared at the human marine in disbelief. "None. But the Korthic are bred for close combat. They are larger and stronger than most species. Their natural weapons can cut through metal. Yes, sir, they are impressive physical specimens, but they have never fought humans before. We approach close combat differently than most species." "How do you approach it?" Rodriguez considered his words carefully. "We approach it with the intent to end it as quickly as possible. The Korthic expected a fair fight between warriors. We gave them an execution." The Marine left the medical bay, leaving Veltar to contemplate his words. The Zephyrian captain was beginning to understand that humans did not think about warfare the same way other species did. They did not seek glory or honor in battle. They sought complete victory with minimum risk to themselves and maximum protection. For the innocent. Captain Hayes entered the medical bay accompanied by Commander Sullivan. Both humans moved with the relaxed confidence of beings who had just accomplished something they considered routine rather than miraculous. Captain Veltar, how are your people feeling? Hayes asked. They are recovering thanks to your medical care. Captain Hayes, I must thank you for what you have done. Millions of innocent beings are alive today because of your actions. Hayes shrugged as if the gratitude was unnecessary. We did what needed to be done. The Korthak were threatening civilians. That made them our problem to solve. But the risk to your own ship and crew was enormous. By any logical calculation, you should not have survived that battle. Sullivan smiled at the alien captain's confusion. Sir, you are thinking about this from the perspective of your own species. Zephyrians are peaceful explorers. You approach problems through study and careful analysis. Humans approach problems through the application of overwhelming force. But surely your people must have been afraid. 200 ships against one represents impossible odds. Hayes looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Afraid of what, Captain? We had superior weapons, we had better training. We had more motivation since we were protecting innocent lives. The outcome was never really in doubt. Veltar realized that the human captain was not boasting or trying to impress him. She genuinely believed that the battle had been won before it began simply because humans were involved. It was a level of confidence that bordered on arrogance, except that the results proved it was justified. Amy Parker's voice came over the intercom. Captain, we are receiving communications from multiple sources. Word of the battle is spreading throughout the local sector. Patch them through to my ready room. I will speak with whoever wants to talk. Hayes left the medical bay followed by Sullivan. Veltar remained at the observation window, staring out at the debris field that had once been the most feared military force in the galaxy. His crew members gathered around him, sharing the same sense of disbelief. Captain, said his communications officer Nix Ara, what do we tell our people when we return home? How do we explain what we witnessed here? Veltar considered the question carefully. How did one describe beings who treated impossible military victories as routine operations? How did one explain a species that could show such devastating violence against enemies while treating strangers with gentle care? We tell them the truth, he said finally. We tell them that there are beings in this galaxy who will answer calls for help with lethal efficiency. We tell them that humans do not negotiate with those who threaten innocent life. They eliminate them. In her ready room, Captain Hayes was fielding communications from across the galaxy. The news of the battle had reached every major government and military organization within 50 light years. Most of the messages expressed gratitude for eliminating the Korthak threat. Some requested information about human military capabilities. A few contained invitations for formal diplomatic contact. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on her communication screen. Captain Hayes, congratulations on a successful mission. Initial reports suggest complete elimination of the enemy fleet with minimal casualties on our side. Thank you, sir. The Iron Resolve performed exactly as designed. The crew executed their duties with professional efficiency. How are our alien guests handling their rescue? Hayes considered the question. I think they are having some difficulty understanding how we approach warfare, sir. They seem surprised that we would risk our lives for strangers. Morrison nodded, understanding her meaning. Most species do not comprehend that humans consider the protection of innocent life to be worth any cost, including our own lives. They will learn in time. What are your orders, sir? Escort the Zephyrian survivors back to their territory. Make sure they get home safely, then return to base for refit and crew rotation. Understood? What should I tell other species who are requesting information about our capabilities? Morrison smiled with the expression of someone who had just solved a long-standing problem. Tell them that Earth is always willing to assist civilized species who are threatened by aggressive forces. But make it clear that when humans respond to calls for help, we do not send aid ships filled with supplies and medical personnel. What do we send, sir? We send warships crewed by beings who understand that some problems can only be solved through the complete elimination of threats. We send Deathworlders who have learned that the most effective way to protect innocent Life is to make it clear that threatening such life will result in swift and permanent consequences. The transmission ended, leaving Hayes alone with her thoughts. She looked out through the ready room window at the debris field that marked humanity's first major intervention in galactic affairs. The battle itself had lasted less than 3 hours, but its implications would be felt throughout civilized space for generations to come. From now on, when aggressive species planned attacks on peaceful worlds, they would have to consider the possibility that their actions might attract the attention of the beings from the Red Zone. They would have to think about what happened to the Korthic fleet when it threatened innocent civilians within range of human patrols.